Hello everybody, welcome to Dakman Productions and welcome to Conahey Rail. And today we have a birthday to celebrate on April 1st, 1976, April Fool's Day. Who was born? Why, of course, it was Conrail. Conrail was formed on April 1st, 1976, and it was because of the biggest bankrupt failure, which was Penn Central. I know people don't like it when I pick on Penn Central, but hey, facts are facts, it's true. And, you know, I can't hate on Penn Central that much because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have Conrail. But when Conrail was announced, when the government announced that they were going into railroading and they were going to name this railroad Conrail, short for Congress Rail or Consolidated Rail. There's a couple different scenarios that goes with that, but people thought it was a joke. They said, "Yeah, the government isn't getting to railroading. What are they talking about? Ha ha ha! April Fools on us. We know better than that." Only to find out it became true. So the government decided to get into railroading, and the reason for that is, well, for one thing, you had, like I said, you had Penn Central that was bankrupt within 2 or 3 years after merging together, between Pennsylvania Railroad and New York Central, and then they made the worm logo. They called it the PC worm logo, and I always said, yeah, Penn Central really did open up a can of worms with that merger. Hence the worm logo, because the worms got loose out of the can. But they weren't the only one that was struggling. You had Reading, even though Walter Herbine will deny the whole entire thing from the Chain Shop Weekly. We go back and forth on that, but that's for Between Us video. And then you had several other ones like Erie, Lackawanna, that was taken over by Conrail. What the problem was is the government seen the failures and the bankruptcies and railroads struggling, and they were in fear of an interruption of the food chain supply, or actually the whole entire supply chain on the entire East Coast of the United States, and they didn't want to see that happen. But you get the conspiracy theorists that said, oh yeah, it was a hostile takeover. Okay, hostile takeover by the government. Yeah. And they were failing asking the government for money. And so instead of, giving them the money, they said, well, why are we going to give somebody like Penn Central money when they've already failed? So, it was actually not only the biggest bankruptcy in the railroading industry, but it was the biggest bankruptcy overall, corporation-wise, in the whole entire United States until the Enron Corporation. We celebrate Conrail today, April 1st, I'm going to call it Conrail Day. It's not April Fool's Day anymore, it's Conrail Day. Now, a lot of people say, oh yeah, well, Conrail ended in 1999, that was the end of that. They split off between sold off between CSX and Norfolk Southern. That's not entirely true. Conrail actually survived past that point, past that 1999 event, because there's areas where they didn't know how to do the split. So there's certain areas where Conrail shared asset operations now exist. They don't have their own railroad equipment that says Conrail on it. I would love to have seen that or see that happen, but they just lease CSX or Norfolk Southern locomotives, and that's it. However, all of the MOW maintenance of way equipment still has, or they still use the Conrail name for that. You'll still go under bridges that say Conrail on them, railroad bridges. such as Philadelphia, a lot of the railroad bridges still have the Conrail name on the railroad bridges. And that's because they're still maintained by Conrail. So Conrail is still moving on, actually, in the years. Not sure if, it'll ever go away, but the funny part is that Norfolk Southern and CSX decided, hey, we don't want to do any more end deliveries. We just want to take it from one freight yard to the other. We got a good idea. We'll make Conrail Shared Assets do all the end deliveries. And that's what happened. So, Norfolk Southern, CSX brings it into the yards. Conrail Shared Assets are actually the ones that make the deliveries. And how I know is because I actually have a good friend who works as an engineer for Conrail Shared Asset Operations currently today. And I'm not going to mention his name. So, what do we have in store for you for this celebration of the Big Blue? Well, when Conrail first took over all these multiple railroads, not everything made it to blue paint instantly, and hence you have the first 3 or 4 years of Conrail that's called the Rainbow Years. And what they did is they actually took locomotives and rail cars and such, and they would mask out around the name and the road number, and then paint a block over the name and or road number. And then they would go ahead and put the letters CR and a new road number on the units. And this is called patching. So if you hear any of the people on YouTube or rail fanning, they talk about, hey, I just saw a Penn Central patched to Conrail locomotive at this museum, then you know what they're talking about. It was originally Penn Central, never made it to blue, and they just simply patched it out, putting the CR logo on it. So for this Conrail celebration, we're going to celebrate Conrail Enola Yards. And if you look at a picture of back in the day, Enola Yard during the Conrail heydays, you'll see a nice big ocean of blue, and more blue in the Enola locomotive yards. And it was just so cool to see that. So that's what I'm going to do today. I figured, hey, that's a good opportunity to show you Conahey Rail Enola Yard. And this Conahey Rail Enola Yard is going to be a sea of blue. Now, I was hoping for more sea of blue, but we'll have to add to it as we're going on here, because I'm actually waiting for the Enola Conrail SD50 with the yellow ribbon. Supposedly that's going to be out sometime in April. I can't wait to get my hands on that and tell my story behind it. So let's get going. We're going to check out the Conahey Rail Enola Yard, and we'll talk about all the pieces that you're going to see. And I'll talk about the catalog number, the stock number. And in case you guys are looking for that same particular piece, also keep in mind what you're looking at. Nothing is for sale. This is just to let you guys see what I have. So let's go. Okay, so here we are. This is, as you can see, Conahey Rail, Conrail Enola Yard. And just like the real Conrail Enola Yard, it's full of a sea of blue. And yeah, so, and also keep in mind, this is a collection that I've been working on since 2015. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about all the pieces here. And also, I'm going to try and give you the date they were made and the catalog that they were featured in. Okay, sorry for the wait or stage, but it was the only way I could get them all to fit. And it's no different than a real locomotive yard. They're all going to be jam-packed in there. So we are looking at Conrail number 4129. So that is a Lionel Legacy SD80 Mac. And that was featured in the Lionel 2012 Volume 2 catalog. They have it advertised as a minimum curve of 036. There is no way in this world I would ever run that locomotive on 036, 042. I would take it into deep consideration whether I would even run it on 054. And the reason being is you have to remember, when you run locomotives that big on tight curves, all you're doing is bending and twisting the wires that go to the motors inside, which are eventually going to break and fail. So I would highly recommend with these full-scale locomotives, the SD80s, is to at least go 072. Do yourself a favor. Also, with that being said, Lionel made two different versions of the SD80 Mac. Just be aware of that if you were to go out and collect or want something. So what you're seeing here is number 4129 is a full, true scale legacy locomotive. Lionel made the Lion Master, which is semi-scale, but it'll be a different road number. To go with that, they also made another road number, which is number 4126. So yeah, number 4126 is another Lionel SD80 Mac full-scale legacy locomotive. That's a powered unit, and number 4129 is also a powered unit. I also have the Lionel Legacy SD80 Mac number 4103, which is the non-powered version. So I have all three versions of the SD80 Mac in a Conrail road name. So you got a powered or non-powered, which is 4103, a powered unit 4126, and another powered unit number 4129, all three being made in 2012. Now these pieces are pretty tough to find. Not sure if Lionel will make another run in the Conrail road name, but that would be cool. Even though I have all three of them, I would buy another set again. Okay, so we have a Lionel TMCC SD70 Mac. Now this particular locomotive was made in the year 2000. It was featured in the Classic Trains Volume 1 2000 catalog. Advertised around on 031. Again, I wouldn't run it on that sharp of a curve, because eventually you're just going to bust the wires off of the motors. But the cool thing about this piece, and I did make a video on this, so these, back in that time period of 2000, the TMCC, they were not very good sellers. They didn't really sell that well. So what Lionel did, and this is all included in the video that I made on this, is they took leftover units that didn't sell, and there were two road numbers of this, 4145 and 4144. The difference is that 4145 was originally a TMCC unit which had sounds particular to that locomotive. So when you run that locomotive, it'll say Conrail number 4145. It calls it out. However, the other road number, 4144, was full conventional and never had sounds. So when Lionel added sounds to that to try and sell it, it had a whole different sound chip or sound set in it, which didn't match what the locomotive had. But anyway, what Lionel did here is that they upgraded these, the ones that didn't sell, which would have been this one here. And as you can see, sorry about that, it was getting way too close. As you can see, it says Odyssey on the side. So Odyssey is Lionel's cruise control system. So Lionel announced cruise control, which was a great added feature. Because with the TNCC locomotives, you were constantly on the throttle. Slow it up, speed it up. Slow it down, speed it up. It was... But the cruise control made it a whole nother level of fun to run these trains. So you didn't have to worry about speeding up or slowing down. I did it for you. There were very, very few of these Odyssey demo units made. And they were only made for dealers. And as a dealer, you had to put into Lionel to get one. And you were not guaranteed of what you were going to get. There was like 4 or 5 different road names. Like, again, I made a video on all this. So you didn't know what road name you were getting until it arrived at your hobby shop. And then at the end of the demo, all the dealers just sold them. They didn't keep them. Okay, so we have Conrail number 4139, which is also an SD70 Mac. Just like number 4145. So there's an interesting story behind the Lionel SD70 number 4139. It was actually a K-line locomotive. So in 2005, K-line had announced 3 different SD70 diesels featuring conventional. It was all new tooling that K-line had produced. However, by the time that it went to production or development, Lionel had bought K-line. However, Lionel went ahead and made good on the K-line orders and produced them. And this particular one was not a regular production unit. Conrail number 4139 was part of a safety award that was given by Conrail in the year 2006. It was also the only safety award set that Lionel had produced for Conrail. There are some who said at the time that this all went down and happened that Lionel should have dumped their current SD70 and kept producing the K-line SD70. To go with the safety award set, there were 3 intermodal cars. I did make a video on that, so you can go back into my Conahey Rail playlist and watch that. This locomotive, again, was produced by Lionel in 2006 using the 2005 K-line new tooling. I almost forgot to mention, the Lionel number 4139 is fully conventional. There are no controls in that. Okay, next up we have another Lionel SD70 Mac. This one is from the Conrail Big Blue set. And the locomotive number is 4133. Again, this is true scale. And the other one, number 4139, was also true scale by K-line. But, so number 4133 is a true scale unit as well. Legacy features. It came as part of the Lionel Conrail Big Blue High Cube boxcar set. Which, yes, I do have the boxcars. You can go back on my channel under the Conahey Rail playlist, and I have run that set on video like 3 or 4 different times with multiple amounts of high cube boxcars. I think I'm up to like 17 or 18 high cube boxcars, the 86-foot ones. There was also, you could buy another road number. Lionel did come out with a second road number of this, but I never got it. The minimum curve rating was 042. Again, I wouldn't recommend that. But they did make a correction in the catalog. It looks like it says 054 recommended, which is better. So the Big Blue High Cube boxcar set was announced in the 2015 Lionel Volume 2 catalog. Next up, we have this Lionel Legacy Conrail GE U30C. Now, I made a video on this when I originally got it back in the day, but make a long story short, I actually had that, ended up selling it, and then a couple years later regretted it. And so I bought it back, and now it's back in a collection again. So here we are. And it's from the Lionel 2007 Train Catalog Volume 2. And it's rated for a minimum curve of 0.31. I don't think I would run it on that. For the length of it, I'm thinking at least 0.54. So let's move on to the next one. Next up is one of my favorites. Actually, I use it as a yard locomotive here in their grain facility on Conahey Rail. It is a Lionel Legacy GP30. And again, it's all scale. Locomotive number 2180. And it was announced in the Lionel 2011 Signature Edition catalog. Minimum curve radius to use it on is 0.31. Yeah, that's a shorty locomotive. That would be a perfect locomotive for a small layout. Would like to add a note in case by some chance Lionel just so happens to watch my videos, which I doubt, but at any rate, I would love to see them come out with the GP30, Conrail GP30 from the Strasburg/Pennsylvania Railroad Museum. Would love to, I would hands down love to have that engine and model for them. I've heard people complain about that particular locomotive, and it sort of like angers me a little bit because people are like, oh, it's got the wrong font on it. They painted it wrong. It's not right. I mean, at least there's a Conrail locomotive that's preserved. So that's how I look at it. And I would still buy it in model form, even though supposedly the paint scheme is not correct, which I don't care. I would still buy it. Okay, up next we have a Lionel Legacy Conrail GP35, unit number 2297. Another one with a very interesting story and history. I've done 2 or 3 videos. I've actually talked about this particular locomotive when I did my YouTube meet and greet in York. So when this locomotive arrived, it did not have the Conrail fonts on the side of it. It was all plain blue. People were totally upset over that, and Lionel gave you the choice of putting a new body on it and sending it back to you, or you could just turn it in for money. And I think a lot of people must have turned them in for money, because you just don't see these. You just don't. So how I ended up with this, to make a long story short, is that I found somebody who was selling the replacement shells for the ones that didn't have the Conrail logos on the side of the bodies. So I decided to go ahead and buy the replacement shell from them. I found a Burlington CB&Q Burlington Route locomotive that was from the same year catalog, which would be the Lionel 2012 Signature Edition. So I decided to buy that, so at least I knew the plugs would all be the same. And so I did a body swap, and I put the replacement body shell on the Burlington Route GP35. So I would still love to find the one without the logo on it. Someday, somehow. I did find a couple body shells, which I did buy one dirt cheap, but they're just rough. I mean, the only way I would put that body on anything is if I found a non-powered unit really cheap. But yeah, I did find if I could find a better shape body shell, then I would definitely find another locomotive to do another shell swap on. It was easy to do. Okay, next up we have another Lionel Legacy. This is an SD40, number 6350. And this particular piece was in the 2015 Lionel Signature Edition catalog. Minimum radius on this is 054. Right behind it is a Lionel Legacy SD38, number 6935. This one was announced in the 2015 Lionel Volume 2 catalog. There was a second release of the Enola Conrail SD38 with the Conrail quality logo. So there was actually two different versions of this particular locomotive that Lionel had produced. One with the can opener logo, as you see here, and one with the quality logo. And I covered this a few videos ago, how Conrail had went from the Conrail name to the Conrail quality name and the reason behind it. And so when the Conrail went to Conrail quality, that was also implemented into the locomotive rebuild program, whereas the locomotives were getting rebuilt, they were receiving the Conrail quality road name. Next up, we have a Lionel Legacy SD40-2, number 6424. This one was announced in the Lionel 2013 Signature Edition catalog. And I see that there's people now who are looking for the Lionel Legacy SD40-2 locomotives. They are really cool. By far, in my opinion, as a diesel mechanic, the SD40-2 was the most dependable locomotive that EMD had ever built, along with the GP9 and GP7. The SD7, the SD9, and this SD40-2, even the SD40, all bulletproof locomotives. They rode a little bit rough, but they were very, very dependable. Next up, we have a Lionel Legacy SD60M and the Conrail road name. This one came out, or was announced in the 2017 Lionel Signature catalog. Now, this was actually a big, huge gamble on Lionel's part, and I'll tell you why. Basically, the only difference between an SD60M, physically, I'm talking about now, physically looking at a SD60M and an SD70 Mac were the trucks, the side frames of the trucks. And Lionel actually did change the side frame of the trucks for the SD60M to make it just like the prototype. The bodies are both the same, so it's like a big gamble because, you know, Lionel has already done the SD70 Mac a few times in the Conrail road name, so people did finally realize, hey, it's basically the same locomotive, and the sales weren't, from what I've seen, too good, but they eventually did sell them all. However, I am glad to have the SD60M in my fleet. But wait, there's more. I almost forgot two locomotives because I had them packed away. I almost forgot all about them. So we've got two more locomotives that just added to Enola Yard, unpacked them. And so what do we have here? So we have a Lionel Legacy SD45, number 6067. And then right next to it is number 6068. So here we have a Lionel Legacy SD45 Conrail set. So this is a Brady's Trains Outlet Special Custom Run, meaning that Lionel built these locomotives for Brady's Trains only. And when Mr. Brady ordered these from Lionel, he only ordered 40 sets. So yes, you had to buy the set. 6067 was the powered unit, and number 6068 was the super base non-powered unit. And what a wonderful set it is. And the reason why I had it boxed up, so anybody who visits the Edison Train Show, the Raritan Valley High Railers does invite me to run on their layout. So these have been on their layout running at the Edison Train Show. And the reason why I pick them every time is because those two locomotives are the only two Bluetooth locomotives out of everything that I have here, as far as Conrail. That's about to change because there's more Conrail on its way. But I like using Bluetooth because it's pretty much bulletproof at the train shows. I just bring my locomotives. I don't have to worry about a remote. I don't have to worry about using their remote. I put the trains on their layout. I open up my Lionel Chief app, and I'm running. Just as easy as that. And I put a lot of hours on these because not only did I get invited by the Raritan Valley High Railers, but I also been invited by the DC area High Railers as well to run on their layout, which I have at a couple different train shows. So these locomotives are basically my show tour locomotives, is what I call them now, because when I get invited to run, those are my go-to locomotives. And they got, even though they're newer than anything else on this layout, they got a ton more hours than anything on this layout because they run and run and run. Once they hit the show, they run nonstop for about 2 to 3 hours at a shot. So yeah, they run for quite a while, and I'm pretty impressed by the performance of them. So I am so thankful that Brady's Trains actually made the Conrail SD45s. Just a great addition. Over here in the corner, my fleet of Cabooses, or some people would say Caboose. I have 2 bay window Cabooses and 3 extended vision Cabooses. The only one that's not Lionel is the one that's all the way in the back, and that's a K-line piece. Now, I did talk about this particular piece a couple times. But what's nice about this caboose that Conrail had one caboose in real life, prototypically, that they actually painted with the Conrail quality logo. There was only one caboose they did that to, and that was road number 22137. Interesting story behind that is that 22137 actually survived and ended up in Conrail Shared Assets North Jersey Yard. And they were using it, or still do, as a shoving platform. However, it was really badly graffitied, weathered, and the powers that be decided it was time for a paint job. They repainted it and renumbered it back to 22137. However, they only put the Conrail can opener logo on it. They did not put the quality logos back on the caboose again. But I'm happy that they actually decided to repaint it and save it either way. So I hope you enjoyed the tour of Conahey Rail, Conrail Enola Yards. There's still a few pieces I'm looking for, or a couple pieces. Other than the GP35, again, I'm not going to mention what the other ones are until I find them, and then I'm going to say, hey, this is what I've been looking for, and I got it at a good price. But I know people are going to ask me, hey, Dakman, I didn't see you have a Conrail switcher. And, you know, I molded around and thought about it. However, you know, I'm just seeing too many complaints and issues from people talking about them for me to add one. Between the single motor, Dell Hudson had talked about how the smoke units can overheat and shut the unit down because it's only a single motor and it goes into a shutdown mode. He mentions also to, you know, if you don't run the smoke, you should be okay. I've seen issues with the dry shafts out of the motors rubbing and creating a noise. on other runs of line-out switchers. So at this point in time, I'm still mulling around. I mean, I can still buy an S1 pretty cheap right now because they're just sitting around. But other than that, I don't know. I'd rather put my money towards stuff that I really want, like the GP9, the GP9B, definitely on the list, and still considering up in the air the U28C. That's like, depends. And definitely can't wait for the SD50 to get here, because I got a heck of a story for you guys on that one. And just looking forward to the big road locomotives. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video today, and officially I am taking away April Fool's Day name. I'm taking it out, and it's going to be Conrail Day. And think about this one. In 2026, Conrail is going to be 50 years old. And I hope I'm around for that one, because I'm going to have one heck of a big celebration for that one. So maybe you guys would consider adding some blue to your layout. In the meantime, catch you guys on another train show. Catch you trackside. Goodbye.